What if your healing isn't slow, but actually perfectly timed? What if the reason things keeping coming back into your life, the same emotions, the same patterns, the same triggers, is not because you failed, but because your system is slowly becoming ready to hold more truth? Hello and welcome back to Breathe. This is Live, the podcast with Monica, a space for honest conversations, deeper awareness, and the journey of being human. Today I want to talk about something that many of us secretly struggle with on our inner journey. The feeling that we should be further along by now. It's the idea that inner blockages should disappear quickly, immediately, overnight. That there should be one big breakthrough, one powerful realization, one moment where everything suddenly makes sense. And after that, life should feel light, easy, free. But if we are really honest, many of us don't actually want transformation. We want relief. We want the discomfort to stop. We want that heavy feeling to disappear. We want that moment where everything suddenly feels better and stays good. But true transformation doesn't just remove discomfort right away, at least not in most cases. It asks us to look at it. And that's why our inner processes rarely work the way we imagine. Because inner transformation is not a switch that you flip once and then everything changes forever. It's much more like a big pot of soup. And I know that might sound like a strange comparison at first, but stay with me for a moment. Imagine a huge pot of soup, a really big one, full of ingredients, vegetables, spices, different flavors. Now imagine someone telling you that you have to eat that entire pot, all at once. First of all, you won't be able to do that. At least most of us won't be able to do that. Your body simply couldn't handle it. And if you really feel inside yourself, you will probably feel overwhelmed and step back instead even try it. And second, even if you tried, you wouldn't actually taste anything. You wouldn't notice the spice because you only concentrate on the speed. You wouldn't feel the warmth, which creates a nice soup inside of you. You wouldn't recognize the different ingredients. And you definitely wouldn't notice the gifts hidden inside. It would simply be too much. And inner transformation works in a very similar way. It happens in small portions, one plate at a time, one spoon at a time. And maybe you can take a moment right now and gently ask yourself, where in my life, where in your life, are you trying to swallow the entire pot at once? Because in between those small portions, we need pauses, time to feel, time to process, time to integrate, time to digest what we just experienced. Most of us have learned to measure progress by speed, but the nerve system measures progress by safety. It's a little bit like when you get the flu. Our body suddenly invites us to slow down or even lay down completely. At first we resist it. Nobody wants the flu. Nobody wants to lay down for a couple of days. Or maybe only for one day. We think we don't have time for that pause. But after a few days, when we start feeling better again, we often realize that we actually needed that break very deeply. The pause, the stillness, the moment where body, mind and heart reconnect again. And inner transformation works in a similar way. Each plate of soup needs time to digest. Otherwise, we might completely miss how deeply we needed that pause and how much integration was happening during that time. Sometimes I often see is that people become frustrated with their own process. They say things like, "Why is this coming up again? I thought I already worked through this. Why I am not further along?" Maybe you know one of those sentences, and maybe you have asked yourself those questions before. And if you have, I want you to hear something very clearly. Your process is not wrong. Your timing is not wrong. Your pace is not wrong. Transformation has its own intelligence. Your nerve system knows how much you can hold at any given moment. Your body knows. Your subconscious knows. But sometimes we say we want transformation, while secretly hoping we can skip the uncomfortable part. Yeah, we want the wisdom without the experience that creates it. And sometimes we even try to outgrow our wound spiritually. We meditate, we journal, we listen to podcasts, we read books about healing. But deep inside, we might still be trying to avoid feeling what actually needs to be felt. Transformation is not another project on our to-do list. We cannot optimize our trauma. We cannot rush our nerve system. And our body will not release all blockages faster just because your mind wants it to. Sometimes what feels slow to the mind is actually the perfect rhythm for the system. And I want to repeat that because it's so important. Sometimes what feels slow for the mind is actually the perfect rhythm for the system. Isn't that good? If we go back to the big pot of soup again, imagine trying to eat the entire pot all at once. You will probably spill most of it. Some of it would land on your clothes, and maybe some of it on the floor. And suddenly, you spend more time cleaning the mess than actually enjoying the meal. But if you eat plate by plate, slowly, you begin to recognize the ingredients. You notice the flavors. You feel how the warmth spreads through your body. In other words, you feel the nourishment You feel the transformation. Because if every memory, every wound, every emotion appeared all at the same time, it would be overwhelming. It would simply be too much. And that's why transformation reveals itself in layers. One layer opens. You explore it. One layer opens. You explore it. You feel it. You learn from it. And then life gives you time to integrate. And later, maybe weeks or months later, another layer appears. Not because you failed the first one, but because now you are ready to go deeper. Same soup, same blockage, just deeper. When something comes up again, it doesn't mean you failed. Very often it simply means that the first time you understood it with your mind. And now, your body is finally ready to feel it. Another thing I want to talk about you today is overwhelm. Many people believe that feeling overwhelmed during inner work means they are doing something wrong. But overwhelm is not a sign of weakness. Very often it is simply a signal for the nerve system. A signal that says, let's slow down. Let's pause. Let's breathe. Let's wait before taking another plate of soup. And see if you're already full. See if you really need another plate soup right now, or maybe if you want to just 1 or 2 moments to digest the first plate before you're getting another one. In our world today, we are so used to pushing, fixing, solving, optimizing ourselves. But transformation is not something you force. It's something you allow. And sometimes when we rush our process, we repeat the same pattern that created the blockage in the first place. We ignore our limits. We push ourselves. And we tell our body, you should be further by now. In other words, we spill the entire soup all at once over us. And imagine you have a big pot of soup spilling over us all at once. How much do you think of the entire pot of soup will actually be in your stomach? Probably not even one plate, because most of it is spilled on your clothes and on the floor. But again, the nerve system doesn't respond to pressure. It responds to safety. And maybe right now, your transformation doesn't need another breakthrough. Maybe it simply needs permission to slow down. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is pause, rest, take a step back. Not because you are avoiding the process, but because rest is part of the process. Integration is part of the process. Silence is part of the process. Imagine eating the bowl of soup again. You take a few spoonfuls. Then you put the spoon down. You breathe. You feel the warmth in your body. And maybe you notice how nourishing it feels. Then after a while, you take another spoonful. And then you maybe find out what spices are in there. What do you taste? That rhythm is very similar to how our inner transformation unfolds. The experience, pause, integration, experience, pause, integration. And slowly, over time, you realize that the entire pot has been nourishing you. And when you eat plate by plate, slowly, recognize the ingredients, recognize all that. You had the entire wisdom, not only the soup. You realize that the entire pot has been nourishing you without you ever needing to force it. Another beautiful aspect of moving slowly is this. When you slow down, we begin to notice the gifts hidden inside our experiences. At first, we only see the pain, but later, with distance, with awareness, we start to recognize the wisdom. Maybe it helped us develop compassion. Maybe it strengthened our boundaries. Maybe it showed us what truly matters. These gifts, just like the spice in the soup, are often quiet, subtle. And if we rush the process, we might completely miss them. We miss the taste, we miss the warmth. We might not even realize what we're truly receiving. And then, life brings us the same soup again, until we realize what we're truly receiving. But when we stay present, those gifts reveal themselves. Because transformation doesn't happen when you simply understand your story. Transformation happens when your body finally feels safe enough to stop protecting itself from it. So if you ever feel like your inner process is taking too long, I want to invite you to shift your perspective. What if nothing is delayed? What if your system is unfolding exactly the way it needs to? What if every pause, every moment of rest, every phase where it seems like nothing has happened is actually a moment where everything very deep is integrating inside of you? Transformation doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like taking a walk, drinking tea, eating soup, breathing deeply, allowing yourself to feel one emotion at a time. Sometimes transformation is quiet, gentle, almost invisible. It doesn't make but it doesn't make it less powerful. Healing is not a race. It is a relationship with yourself. And relationships grow slowly, with patience, with attention, and care. So instead of asking yourself, why is this taking so long? Maybe ask yourself, what part of me is asking to be felt next? And remember, you don't have to transform everything today. One spoonful is enough. Thank you. Thank you for listening today, and thank you for being part of the story. I hope this episode reminded you that you don't have to wait to be whole. You can start in the here and now, in this moment. Thank you for being here. I would be so happy if you subscribe this podcast or share it with someone who might need it right now. See you next time. And remember, you are allowed to breathe. You are allowed to be. Because if I can do it, you can do it as well. Breathe. This is Life, the podcast with Monica.